Good evening, Wood County. I'm Taylor Collins, executive producer here at BG24 News. Every week, we bring you the stories that matter most on campus, in the community, across the state, and across the nation. The producers panel is where we take a step back and talk about the stories in our own opinion. But these opinions do not affect the views of the organization and do not impact the way we cover these or any other stories. Tonight, we'll be discussing Toledo's residents who have taken in a Syrian refugee. Then we'll be discussing the devastating terrorist attacks that occurred in Nigeria earlier this morning. We will also be discussing recent support President Obama has shown for the Black Lives Matter movement. Finally, we'll dive into recent Benghazi testimony hearing presidential candidate Hillary Clinton faced this week and what it means for the Democratic Party. It's all here on your BG24 News Producers Panel. I'm here with reporter Amy Stegerwall, BG24 News producer Isabella Maney, and public affairs host DeMonte Quincy. Thank you for joining me tonight, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Earlier this month, President Obama said that the United States would accept 10,000 Syrian refugees next year. So far, the country has resettled over 100 Syrian refugees within the past year. Some have settled as close as to Toledo. So I knew that Obama said that we would get a lot of Syrian refugees in. I know that Ohio is one of the top states to get a lot of families in. So I just want to get you guys' opinion about that and kind of how you guys feel about it.
I think that the first time that we really actually heard strongly about this was when the whole Donald Trump incident came up, where he brought up how he wanted to kick them all out of the country and get rid of them. And I think that the fact that we have a personal connection with it now in Ohio, and let alone Toledo, really speaks for our country and for the area. And I'm just really pleased with what is going on. As I read the article today about it, it was really, really surprising.
Yeah, I think personally, there's at least 4 refugees within Ohio, and I think 2 are in the Northwest region. So there's like a family within another Toledo family, and then the one that I thought was really interesting was that there's in Toledo, like near the University of Toledo, there's 4 college boys who took in a Syrian refugee, and he's 22 years old, the refugee, and the others are in their like early 20s, like no different than us. And I thought that was so interesting because, you know, I couldn't imagine doing that, but I also think that's such an awesome experience, and I think it really says a lot for our generation, for those college kids to really like take that step and be like, yes, absolutely. And when I was reading about it, I was reading an article about it on NPR, and they said in an interview, like one of the residents, he was like, yeah, he was like, this is really cliche, but I did it like out of love. And I was like, that's so beautiful. Like, I thought that was awesome.
It's also interesting to see the dynamic between Syrian refugees and American culture, because there's already like a language barrier, and our customs are so different. Like, I read up, like they took them to the grocery store for the first time, and they were just like in awe, and driving and seeing traffic and just being in an atmosphere of America that's not the same in Syria is really interesting. I like to see that dynamic between, you know, someone from a different country, because if I went to Syria, I would feel the same way, just to have that language barrier and just trying to understand their customs in order for me to like blend in.
Big kudos to Ohio and the Toledo residents, and big kudos to that college student who took in the Syrian refugee. If I feel like I couldn't do it, because I just feel like it would be a big target on my back, just because I feel like a lot of eyes will be watching me. But I read the father of one of the families, and he said he's very grateful, he's very happy, and of course he want to go back to Syria, but it have to be after the war.
You know, I think we don't think about the things, as you mentioned, Taylor, that, you know, when you do come to another country, we expect it. We're so used to our lives in America. You know, we're so being used to just walking up the street and being able to go to Starbucks, or, you know, going to the grocery store, the gas station, and the fact that they don't have that as their norm, and that we have to teach them something like that is a learning experience for themselves, for us, you know, adapting to that culture, that this is how we live America, this is how, you know, how it's different from your culture, teaches us something and really says something about America.
I'm so happy so many are coming.
Absolutely.
There's a war in Syria, and a lot of them I heard like went to Jordan, and they're still not getting like the proper health care, the proper education, just a lot of things that I think that we take for granted because we're, like you said, we're very used to them, that they really, really need. So the fact that so many of them are coming here and getting education for their kids, that way their kids could learn American, language and customs and actually really adapt to it is I think it's a really great.
Yeah, I think, that's, the thing about America is we're so huge. We're such a huge economy, one of the biggest in the world. And, this is something that America should be doing. We should be being able to house people who don't even have any of the same privileges as us.
Definitely.
And I think, it's the least that we could do for these people who are suffering and all that stuff. So like you said, I didn't start hearing about it until Donald Trump said he didn't want them here. But I think that's absolutely, crazy, because why not? We can afford it. We can do that for people. And I think that's one of the great things about America and our economy is that we can really, help.
And open the door for a lot of other
Exactly.
just types of people, religious, and just everyone can because America's such a melting pot anyway, that I feel like we should be the type of country to accept anybody.
Because
in
we
both
are.
worlds.
That was what we're based on, is that
Exactly.
we are that melting pot. So who are we to close our doors? We're not. We're not in that position to do that. So.
Speaking of the melting pot, I wonder why the refugees choose Ohio, because I don't think,
Right.
if I think of America, I don't think of Ohio being the most diverse
Yeah, you
place.
think,
like
you think
New
of
York.
LA, you think of Florida. Why go to the warm places?
Right.
But they wanted to come straight for the cold, I guess.
I appreciate it though, because I love Ohio. This
Yeah.
is where I was born, so I'm very happy about it.
Yeah.
Coming up when we return, we will discuss the tragic terrorist attacks that happened in Nigeria this morning. Stay with us. Welcome back to BG24 News Producers Panel. Earlier this morning, twin bomb blasts has killed at least 18 people in a northeast Nigerian mosque. This is the latest in the string of suicidal bombings within the area. So reading on this, I was very, very astonished, because I think this is the second or the third time I've heard about bombings and stuff like this. So
I think that the idea that they always seem to be based back to religion really is what bothers me. Last year there was the Jewish one, and now there's a mosque, and it's never gonna be peace. I think that we are losing, as society, we are losing whatever religion it may be, we are losing the basis of it, and that is peace. Every religion promotes peace. They promote working in conjunction with other people, whether they are your religion or not. At least I know that's what my religion is like, and I assume that many other are the same. I think that when we associate bombings and when we associate, terrorist attacks with religion, it gives a religion a bad rep, and that's disappointing, because there are so many people who are not like that in that religion, and that's something that we really need to start realizing and stop criticizing people for.
Yeah, I think it's just really, it's devastating, because it's been a string of 3 different bombings within, and then we said 18 when everything happened, but right before the show I checked, and it's up to 42 deaths now.
Wow.
Over 100 people injured. It's really crazy, and they're urging people to donate blood if they can, and it's so devastating, because these people don't have any of the resources we have, and for that to happen there, and people are really struggling. And the fact that, like you said, that it's based on religion, that these were basically hate crimes because they were targeting people of certain religions, that's devastating. And I think, it's just, it's so sad. And to think, trying to relate personally to, the domestic terrorist attacks we've had, and even foreign terrorist attacks we've had in America alone, and how devastating we take it as a nation, I can only imagine how these people are feeling.
I'm just so hurt because, like you said, they don't have the resources that we have. So even when we have terrorist attacks and we have all these resources, it's still so devastating to us as a country.
And it's hard.
It takes us months, years, decades to really get back to where we were before. So for them to not have even just the government, the healthcare, just any help at all in Nigeria is so hard for a lot of people to just get better. It's going to take them a very, very long time to kind of just get back into the realm of things, because this is such a devastating thing that happened.
Right, like you said, if we think back to 9/11, I mean, granted, there were many more deaths than there were in this case, but that doesn't really make as much of a difference, in my opinion. There were deaths, and that's sad, and that's tragic, and we have to build up. But look at how long it took us to build up from 9/11. We are still recovering from it.
We're still talking about 9/11, and obviously it's because it had that much of a detrimental effect on our society in America, and even worldwide people know about it. So I just can't believe like that it's still happening and people still do these things to innocent lives, and it's tragic, and I'm hoping for the best for the situation.
And people of a society will never get over a terrorist attack, because I know they say don't live in the past, but when terrorist attack killed innocent people, it puts you in a certain place at a certain time, and every time you go back to think about it, it just puts you in a sad mood all the time. And it's hard to get over something like that, and you can't get over something like that because you know where you were when you heard the situation, or if you were there, what you experienced.
And you mark that date. You know, we say the date 9/11 now, and we know what it means.
Everybody knows.
You know, they're gonna have this day, and they're gonna know what it means to them, and it's gonna forever hold a place in their hearts. You know, it's gonna be sad. They will move on, but it's never going to go away.
I just hope that they find, I think I read it was just like one bomber or a group of bombers. I think they know specifically who it is or what type of group it is.
Yeah, I hope they find justice, and I hope that they get, you know, blood donations and, you know, people coming to their aid, because I really think, you know, there needs to be more survivors than deaths, and I hope that they get that as a nation. So,
I agree.
Yeah.
Coming up when we return, we'll be discussing President Obama's recent support for the Black Lives Matter movement. Stay tuned. President Obama showed support for the Black Lives movement on Thursday night. The Black Lives Matter movement stemmed from a series of police shootings of African American men and women and has now created a pushback movement entitled All Lives Matter. But the president argued the law enforcement officers that the movement of Black Lives Matter needs to be taken seriously as a society. So this movement has been, you know, in place since last year. As you guys know, Mike Brown's killing was last August, and there have been a series of killings in Black youth. So I just want to get your guys' opinion on it.
Well, I definitely think he's absolutely right. I think it took a lot for him to say that as a president because of the backlash he is receiving and going to receive. But he said something really I thought was important. I have a quote, and he said, "I think everybody understands that all lives matter. I think the reason that organizers used the phrase Black Lives Matter was not because they were suggesting nobody else's life matters." And I thought that was really powerful, because the problem with All Lives Matter, you know, in the pushback to Black Lives Matter, is that nobody is saying that not everybody matters. Right. The issue is that, you know, Black youth, Black men, Black people in general are being oppressed and being targeted, and that's an issue in society. You know, it's 2015, why are we still talking about this? And I think he's absolutely right, and it's not that not everyone matters, but it's just with All Lives Matter, you can't argue that against Black Lives Matter.
I thought it was interesting to see that Obama actually put his own personal story in it. He said something like, yeah, I remember being young and the police stopping me and I don't even know why.
Exactly.
And it just puts you into the perspective like, this is a real concern in the Black community. This is happening every day. People in communities are dealing with law enforcement that are basically biased to them because of their, you know, skin color. And I just feel like it's something that needs to be addressed, and we're kind of just pushing it under the rug, Oh, I think they think that we're crazy. You know, that's not really that bad.
That's what he said. He's like, the African American community isn't making this up.
Exactly.
And it's true, and he should have said that, because that community isn't, you know, being outrageous. They have, you know, clear points where it's like so obvious, and it needs to be talked about. And that's why, you know, like with the riots in Baltimore and things that have happened in Ferguson, yes, it's completely out of hand at the point they get to, but those people are not wrong for protesting. They're hurting. They're hurting.
Yeah.
A community in America is hurting, and we need to resolve that as a country. It's that simple.
And this is an analogy I saw on social media where they said advocates for advocates for save the rainforest, they don't say, oh, screw all other all other forces, but save the rainforest. Just bringing awareness to that particular subject. And that's what people of Black Lives Matters want to do, just bring awareness to people of the Black community being mistreated by law enforcement officials.
Well, I think that we don't really. We've looked at both sides of the extremes in this case. You know, we've looked at the people who are protesting, you know, for their cause when Black people have been oppressed by the police, and we look at people who have been, you know, police officers who've been put down because they have been acting this way. Both sides of the extreme, and neither should speak for group. You know, not all people who are protesting are doing it in a bad sense. At the same time, not all police officers who are, you know, making these moves are doing it with bad intentions. They are all not, we need to stop making stereotypes for police officers and for people, you know, black people who are protesting, that they are bad, because not everyone is like that. And it's a shame that those people get that stereotype with their job or with their life. We need to work for, I can't put it into words of how this needs to be more of an equal span, how we need to just stop putting stereotypes and judgments on certain groups of people.
And it's hard because it's a society. We've been in this mindset for years. You understand? Like, you know, the civil rights movement only ended in the 60s. So we've only been 50 years, you know, away from, you know, oppression and, you know, discrimination and prejudice. So it's really hard for us to kind of move forward. And I thought that we have, but it's like always, you know, coming back to us, and actually, like, we haven't moved that far. We really need, as a society, to like get past this. I don't know the best way to get past this.
Well, I think the best way to get past it is to talk about it, to raise awareness, and that's with anything. I think.
People really get uncomfortable when you talk about it, though.
Exactly, and that's the problem. And I think that's the only way anything in this country has ever gotten any awareness, has ever gotten any change. If the civil rights movement, if people hadn't been protesting, if people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X hadn't been talking about it, there would have been no change. So we need to start. And I know it doesn't matter how uncomfortable people get; it needs to happen.
People could speak all day, you know, long, but I think people have to let their guards down and be willing to accept and hear people opinions, or hear people and not get so defensive every time they, you know, something that they hear they disagree with.
I think that it's hard. I know a couple personal friends who are police officers and who have been put in different situations such as these. And, you know, sometimes in different cities, there's obviously going to be different demographics of people. And some of them face this problem more often than another might. But I think police training in general just needs to kind of have a solid ground, needs to have a common ground, so that everyone knows that this is a problem and that everyone knows how to face it when they see it that way.
And I'm really happy that Obama actually came, because he has such a high platform. I've never seen a president do this ever. Granted, we haven't had this big of a situation in the past, you know, 20 years.
This has been talked about for a year.
I just hope that the next president that we get cares as much about it as Obama does, because I really feel like he came out and said, this is a real situation. I know I'm the president, I know I'm supposed to speak for everyone, but this is something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and I think that's, I think that's a great point, because, you know, at the Democratic debate a few weeks ago, they a normal person asked on the, you know, the video chat, they were like, do you believe in Black Lives Matter or All Lives Matter, to all the candidates? So I think it's going to be interesting, you know, to see where we go from Obama's progressive era of his presidency to whoever is our next president.
I also think he's done a good job with not saying too much, because a lot of people are looking at him, you know, he's challenged with this topic because he is African American. He can't be out there just shouting for these people constantly, because he's going to look biased, you know. He's going to look like he's going one way or the other, but he's done a good job with only saying things when need be.
Coming up next, we will be discussing the state of disaster that the county outside Austin, Texas has declared with recent wildfires. Stay tuned. And welcome back to BG24 News Producers Panel. President Obama wasn't the only Democrat in headlines. The House Benghazi Committee confronted Hillary Clinton in an 11th-hour hearing Thursday. The panel, filled with 7 Republicans, argued to prove that Clinton ignored U.S. Ambassador to Libya Chris Stevens' request for additional security. Clinton appeared to remain calm during the 11-hour ordeal. So I was very proud of Hillary. She did a very great job of keeping her composure. About the Benghazi topic, as you all know, that happened in like 2012. There was attack on the American, committee or American.
Yeah, four Americans lost their life.
Yeah,
and that's devastating. And then I thought really the whole ordeal was a bit much, because 11 hours to, you know, drill Hillary Clinton on questions about emails and things along those lines, when really, you know, we should be reflecting more on the Americans that lost their lives. I thought a few takebacks from the whole ordeal was that she remained very calm for being there for 11 hours. You could tell the Democratic Party as a whole was really on her side. And I thought for the Republican Party, you know, it had kind of a bit of a setback for them, because the whole thing right now is that Trey Gowdy, the chairman panel, everyone is questioning, did you have good intentions with this? Is this just to hurt Hillary's campaign? And honestly, I'm not sure that the intentions were, all that pure. So I don't know.
I think that there have just been so many within this election, on the Republican side and the Democratic side, there have been so many things within the parties that have been distracting from the actual election, what they are going to do.
Right.
And that's been distracting us from, I think, picking a candidate who we're going to vote for, or picking someone who we want to represent either or party. And I think that people need to stop focusing on, the Donald Trump issues and the Hillary Clinton emails, and just find out who's going to be the best candidate for president.
Exactly. I don't know. I think it's just kind of crazy, and I don't think it's going to hurt Hillary Clinton's campaign. I think if anything, within the Democratic, populace, I think it's only going to probably make her stronger at the end of the day, because we still do have so much time within this campaign.
And it just was great to see how well she dealt with a stressful situation. As a president, you're going to deal with a lot of stressful situations, so it was great to see that she kept her composure and that she can really be a great candidate for the future. Well, that's it for BG24 News Producers Panel tonight. You can check out these stories and more on youtube.com/BG24 News. Also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and now Instagram. And feel free to tweet us about what you think about these issues and stories. Have a good night, everyone.
Corners and you stay out of trouble. The bells are buddy, so go ahead and ding that. All right, you ready?
So we named